Hey everyone, Genevieve here, and welcome to For Kindness Sake, a show that's all about good people who do nothing but great things. And today we have a very, very special episode. I'm here with someone who you may or may not recognize from our very first episode, James.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for having me back.
Welcome. You're back.
Yes.
And this time you brought some friends with you.
I have. We have Miyuki Panda and we have Josh Hill.
Yes. Hello. And for a little bit of context, Cheryl, otherwise known as Miyuki Panda, she is a Formula One content creator and sim racer on Twitch. And Josh, who is a Formula One expert host and comes from a racing dynasty. His father is world champion Damon Hill, and his grandfather, two-time world champion Graham Hill.
That's it. Yeah, yes. Correct.
And before we get started today, just want to see how's everyone today? How are y'all doing?
Feeling pretty good. I decided to walk here for half an hour rather than take the train straight to the door.
Oh, wow.
Because I don't know my directions around London. But made it here, so I'm fine.
Fair.
I did the exact same thing. I walked all the way from Liverpool Street. Also have lost my voice today, but we're going to try our absolute best.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm feeling good. Really excited to be here. To be fair, I would have purposely just walked all the way through London because it's the first time we've had sun all year. So I think that's really what's happened. We all just secretly needed some vitamin D again.
Just craving some sunlight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a gamer. I don't go outside.
The light.
Yeah, I think the weather today wasn't too bad, like temperature-wise. So it was nice to walk around for a little bit before.
I could hack it. It's better than Scotland. Better than Scotland.
Oh god, I could imagine, weather-wise. But yeah, you're all here for a very special reason today, and that reason is to raise awareness for charities all close to your hearts. And before we go into more detail about each of your chosen charities, James, would you mind telling me a little bit about racing awareness? For those who have listened to our very first episode regarding autism awareness, may have heard about this event before, but for those of you who are not, would you mind telling us a little bit about it and what's so special about this year's edition?
Yeah, absolutely. So for full context, Racing Awareness 4 is a charity arm of my esports team, JJ Racing. Historically, we would always do an annual event. We pick a charity, and of course, the basis of it was to raise funds and raise awareness, pun intended, for the charity of choice. For the last couple of years, we've done this in the form of a endurance karting race and getting people together that way. And last year's was the biggest one yet. We had 52 teams take part. We had two different classes of racing. So we had the really quick drivers in the Drivers' Cup, racing professionals, those with actual racing licenses. And then we also had the Corporate Cup, which brought together a whole new community. So we had this from, let's say, people who liked motorsport but never had a chance to do it before. And so we basically had 52 teams come together, a motorsport community, 7 different industries worth of employees to share experiences, to share best practices of inclusion in the workplace, and of course have some good battles on the track together. Cheryl and Josh were both part of it and was, really appreciated your time to come along to it and to help support it as well. And between the feedback from the chats we had afterwards and also from the competitors, they said, we like this, can we have more of this for 2026? And so that's how the event has evolved for this year. Rather than doing a one-off, going to go to different venues around the UK. We are going to try and get more of the communities involved in this again, and for each of the rounds we're dedicating it to a different charity, the charities of which are very close to all of our hearts, and so we will be championing our respective rounds as a result of it. So there's a lot of personal meaning to this, and as I say, it helps to bring more of the British community together.
That's very exciting. And because you were both of you at the previous event, I'm guessing that also encouraged you to join forces with James this year, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's first of all, it's an honour and a privilege to be reached out to kind of asked to be championing a cause like this. and the event was great fun as well. So that just is the bonus at the end of the day. So I met him, Monty, for the first time. I call him Monty because that's what he told me to.
Monty and two are better acquaintances is what I tend to tell most people. I think you're the only one that calls me James, apart from my mum.
I think because
You're not my mum. Don't call me James.
Yeah. I think because I've known your sister for a very long time, so that's how I've always known you as James.
That would be why then. That would be why. For confusion, guys, yeah, you're here Monty, you're here James. It's all the same. It's still me.
It's the same person.
Exactly.
Jim Monty over here.
Just tally up all the nicknames.
I met him for the first time at Rye House, which is coincidentally where I started my career as well, in club karting, and it was a great day. It was really good fun. You could see everyone really getting involved and how much it meant to them as well, that they were kind of in a space with other people like them, because you often go to these charity events and the people that the charity is raising the awareness for, raising money for, aren't there in great amounts, so it was nice to kind of make it kind of an exclusive event to whatever the cause is that which in this case was autism. So yeah,
the event was really, really good. My team came second from last in the corporate cup, which is why I said no, you don't want to be on a team with me. Although I did get the fastest lap out of my team, so really I carried them.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing!
You're looking at the wrong way. You want to be on our team rather than you shouldn't say you don't want to be on a team with me, You say, I want to be on their team.
That's because I don't want to drag you down. Because I'm nice
fun.
like that.
It's not about that anyway, is it? So have a good fun time. Anyway.
Exactly. So no, that's the key ethos of it. It's about bringing people together. It's about having a lot of fun. Of course, it's for charity as well, which is the aim of the game. And one of the unique things of how I've set up this event as well is the competition's already live now, because for the competitors, their grid positions are determined based on how much they fundraise rather than what their practice times are. So the race is already happening as we're speaking, because the teams who have already signed up have got their Just Giving pages, they've got their Tiltify pages going. It just adds to, I guess, what is unique about motorsport and how they like to make things competitive at any given opportunity, right?
Yeah, we're competitive people, anyone in motorsport, and that links into the causes that we're championing as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm championing ADHD UK, and I was recently diagnosed last year with ADHD. I think I kind of knew for a long time that I might have ADHD, but I'd never actually... I've got ADHD, so I didn't check it out, obviously. But then I got seen and got diagnosed, and then since then it's been a big journey of discovery for me. But also it makes a lot of things that I've known about myself from the past make a lot more sense, like my competitiveness and need for challenge. So yeah, we've already started the kind of turning the screws a little bit and kind of pressing all the buttons that ADHD people love being pressed.
Yeah, no, let's take a deep dive on some of your chosen charities then. And like Josh, you just said, ADHD UK, and James, yours is the National Autistic Society.
Correct.
And I want to start off with you guys first, simply because those two areas kind of fall under the neurodiversity bracket. And Josh, you just mentioned being diagnosed recently as an adult. And from what I know from you, James, in comparison, you were diagnosed with autism as a child.
Correct.
So those are kind of like two completely different experiences there and sort of differences of being diagnosed as an adult versus a child. So I just want to read out like a quick little stats, how ADHD affects an estimate of 2.5 million people in the UK, with many still undiagnosed or still waiting for an assessment. Josh, how long did you have to wait for your assessment roughly?
So I guess this is the kind of benefit for myself from coming into it later in life and going about it myself. I hate waiting. So I went, there must be another way. And I did a little bit of research and found something called Right to Choose, which is on the NHS. So it's there to help alleviate waiting times by allowing the patient to choose their outsourcing, basically the preparatory stage of which is the lengthy bit of being treated for whatever. So anything, I think with anything that is provided by the NHS that has a very long wait time, you can do right to choose for. So I'd heard horrible stories of 2 to 7 year waits. Some in some places in the country, it's like 10 plus.
Yeah.
I mean, your life is gone by that point. You know, you've missed out a huge part of your life that has been hampered by some assets of ADHD. So I went right to choose, and I got seen within 8 weeks via a company called ADHD 360. They do everything online and with video calls. I got assessed via video call by a registered nurse, and within another 8 weeks, I'd gone through my titration medication stage, and like where they find your dosage, and I was there. I was done. So they panned that back to the NHS, and I'm prescribed by the NHS now. So yeah, luckily I didn't have to wait very long, but the primary reason I didn't is because I saw those wait times, and I went, there must be another way.
How did you feel? Like, you mentioned something there about, you touch base on like how your life's improved and stuff like that, like recognizing like your sense of competitiveness, etc. Is there anything else that began to make more sense for you since your diagnosis?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many different factors to ADHD. It's quite they all kind of link to each other, and they affect how each factor works. But it's an incredibly complex kind of web of how everything kind of fits together. But for myself, on my side, so I came out as inattentive ADHD. So there's new research has shown there's more than just one type of ADHD. It's not just the kid bouncing off the wall sitting in the classroom. It could be the kid sat by the window, looking out the window, doodling in the margins, which was me, and thinking about a new grand plan or whatever. And that's much harder to spot. So I guess that's why it took so long with me. And I didn't think, oh, I've got ADHD, because it wasn't the thinking before. But for myself personally, executive dysfunction was such a big part of my ADHD getting in the way of my life. I'd become not high functioning anymore. I'd become low functioning because of this executive dysfunction, they call it, where you can be really excited about a project, you do all the research, you do all the build-up work, you do everything. I mean, the classic story is people ADHD starting a new hobby every week, because you get all the stuff, you get, everything together, you learn everything about it, you get to the starting point, it could be painting, whatever, and you're standing in front of the easel with the paintbrush in your hand, and you go, I'm bored now, and then you just leave, and that's it. You do it once and never come back, or just physically not being able to do it. I never understood why. I knew I had to go to the gym, but I physically couldn't make myself do it. There was something stopping me from doing that, and that's been the biggest change for me with the medication, is that it's completely kind of erased that. I don't get the chance to think about stuff before doing it. I just do it, and that's been such a massive change for me, and a real positive growth as well.
Were there any like random hobbies in the past that you like picked up on and then you just didn't pursue like shortly thereafter?
You want me to list them all?
Any?
How long have you got? I mean, God. Well, firstly, I'm a big nerd, so anything nerdy, I'm immediately drawn to. We were talking in the lobby earlier about my love of Magic the Gathering, and but motorsport's nerdy as well. Motorsport is super nerdy, and everything about it is just really kind of engrossing. But I guess, yeah, I mean, it's so many fallen by the wayside that you can come back to 5 years later and go, oh yeah, I remember this, and then you have this kind of renewed energy for it. But it's not going to be the same as the first time around. But yeah, I mean, take your pick. Anything. I've tried them all.
What's something you wish more people knew about ADHD, particularly adult ADHD?
I kind of, I guess, Monty, I was listening to your Monty's podcast, first one, on the way up today. And I guess the thing that you said about someone coming up to you and saying, being scared to say autism or
Yes.
being scared of the label, you know. It's not like a bad thing to have ADHD. It's just a different way of your brain working, and the difference is that the world is created a certain way and set up a certain way. You know, I've now feel like I've been driving a race car around a multi-story car park my entire life, and now they've gone, no, you're driving that car in the wrong place. Let's put you over here, or the medication at least is like feels like you've changed the tires, and it makes more sense to have those tires in that environment. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the idea that ADHD is a bad thing and it needs to be kind of quashed or shut down, because it's not going to be. It's like trying to. Yeah, it's like trying to ask someone from the Amazon jungle to speak English. They're going to speak their language because they don't know English, and your brain with ADHD isn't going to fit into an office mold because that's not what an ADHD brain does. So, yeah, I guess that's the major thing that I wish people would be able to understand a little bit more. But you know, understanding and awareness is growing every single day, and this is kind of what this is all about as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. James, do you have anything to add from your end
Yeah.
in regards to your experience?
I mean, I'm curious to ask Josh a couple of questions because I appreciate getting a diagnosis as an adult. Your journeys can be very different to mine. But I just wanted to add that from one of the points you just said there, I think it's important for people to realise curiosity isn't a discrimination. And if someone is willing to share that tag with you, tag's not the right word, but you know what I mean, if they're sharing to disclose that information with you and you don't know anything about it, that's okay. Ask the questions, find out, because certainly for autism, certainly the case for ADHD and all forms of neurodiversity, you meet an autistic person, you've met an autistic person. You meet a person with ADHD, you've met a person with ADHD. How it impacts you is going to be different to the one bouncing off the walls, which you were describing before. So it comes down to just understanding that person more. And how do you create that environment, firstly, to make it someone feels safe enough to have that conversation? And then once you've achieved that, what are you going to do with this information? How are you going to act on it? Because to share that information, that's us putting a lot of trust into someone as well. And so you've got to know and trust that they're going to do the right thing with it. I won't drop names, but there's another ADHD racer I know out there. And he said when he had his diagnosis, he knew the correct Haynes manual to pick up for himself. Now, that was how he described it, because he'd been trying all these different methods and it just wasn't working. And now he was kind of pointed in the right direction. How did it feel for you to get that diagnosis?
I mean, it kind of just was confirmation more than anything, because one of the big questions I always was getting asked constantly was, why? Why do you want to be diagnosed? And my answer was, well, if there's something that can help me, then I want that. I'm a racing driver. I'm not going to, you know, if I come into the pit lane and the engineer tells me the setup change will work, I'll go, okay, well, let's give it a go. I'm not going to go, no, don't be silly. I'm going to try. I'm going to get diagnosed. And also mentally, it was more like confirmation that I'm personally not a lazy, useless idiot who can't function. I am just, my brain's wired differently, and I've been trying to jam myself into a square hole.
Yes.
And I'm a round peg, and
it explains why.
Yeah, exactly. And that was more than anything just that. If they went, you've got ADHD, but you don't need medication, I would have been happy with that. But they score out of 9 for some reason, but I was 2 out of 9 on hyperactive, which anyone who knows me will attest to that. I'm not the most energetic person, but 8 out of 9 on inattentive. And I can assure everyone I have 50 new business ideas every day, and I act on barely any of them because it's like, you know, do you know the Crystal Maze? Anyone know the Crystal Maze? Yeah.
Yes.
You know have you watched Crystal Maze? You know, but
I feel like I've heard. It sounds familiar to me.
It's a classic British game show. There's a bit at the end, so they basically have to go through all these rooms and like do puzzles and challenges, and they collect crystals. And then at the end of the game, they go into a big crystal dome. They turn a fan on, and they have to grab silver and gold tickets out of the air that are flapping around. That's my brain. But imagine that's just me inside trying to grab all these tickets flapping around in the air. They're all greased up. The moment they gave me some medication, it was like they turned the fans off. I could grab the tickets and like go, okay, this needs to go in there. Whereas before I would grab a ticket and go, great, and it would go flying out of my hand again. And then I'd grab another one and that will go flying out of my hand again. So in terms of that, that's why I wanted to get diagnosed, and that's how it felt. I felt kind of like a relief, like I'm gonna get help. Someone actually is gonna change the world, like my perception of the world for me, to allow me to exist.
That's for me. That's amazing to hear. Relief is the key word I'm hearing there, and I've heard others share that kind of description as well. Because you found the solution which is working for you now and is enabling you, and that really I think is the key story when we talk about ADHD diagnoses, in particular, tying it back to the delayed prognosis, or how long the waiting lists are at the moment. Not many people get an opportunity to experience that because they're still on the waiting list for that. And so they're still struggling. They're still trying to understand themselves in a society which isn't geared up to understand or have the patience to. And that, I think, ties back into the whole purpose of kindness, is sometimes it's just stopping for 5 seconds, because there's definitely a lot of people out there, when you communicate with them, I don't know about you, I can tell when I'm speaking to my people. And even if you haven't got the diagnosis, that doesn't mean you have to wait until someone's got the diagnosis to help them out, to enable them. If you can see someone struggling and you're understanding their way of seeing the world, why are you waiting for the diagnosis? You can start today and just get to know them.
And if you want to be really pragmatic about it, I know this shows all about kindness to each other, but it's a weird world at the moment. There's people that don't seem to have a lot of kindness in them. And if you really want to be pragmatic about it, undiagnosed ADHD costs the UK economy an estimated £17 billion a year because of lost taxes, or taxes not being paid, accidental, damage to yourself or others. If anything, it's in the government's interest to help people with ADHD, not discount its existence or brush it off like it's nothing. Yeah. So
I wasn't aware of that stat. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. 17 billion. That's a lot of money.
Jeez, that is.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all of these like different stats and like your experiences from your both your point of views. I just want to ask one more question in regards to sort of this realm. How would you say that your experiences, whether that is ADHD or autism, shape how people move through motorsports or any kind of sports, really?
Can I lead on this one?
Absolutely.
I have always maintained that Formula One and motorsport, Formula One primarily, but motorsport exists because an ADHD person, I'll start again. And someone with autism designed a car, and then someone with autism someone with ADHD walked into the room and went, "Can I drive that?" It is that, isn't it? It's like you walk through the paddock and you're surrounded by fantastically, like brilliantly brained people that have created their own environment that they can do what they want to do, which is build amazing, elaborate machines, and then get in it and drive it as fast as they can and put themselves in a really high pressure environment, which is what is perfect for ADHD.
100% agree with you on that one. I mean, if you wanted a case study for undiagnosed neurodiversity and you wanted to go and witness it firsthand, running a whole industry, go to a motorsport event. I think that's the best way to describe it, actually, because without that, there wouldn't be any forms of motorsport. You need the obsession, you need the passion, you need the outside the box ways of thinking to gain that competitive advantage, and you see it demonstrated day on day every time you go to one of these events.
I think the key word that you said was obsession. Like you won't find more obsessive people in the world than in Formula One. They live, eat and breathe F1. If it doesn't make the car go faster, they're not interested. They just aren't, and they know every single bit of that car inside and out, and why it's there and what it does and how can it be better. And it's just constantly chasing this thing, which is just, for someone with ADHD, it's so novel. So the ADHD like nervous system is often kind of used. They use the acronym INCUP. I think it is, INCUP, which stands for, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll try and remember. In is interest, novelty, challenge, urgency, passion. If it doesn't fall under one or more of those categories, the ADHD brain does not switch onto it. It doesn't care. It just doesn't care. So this is why people get this ADHD hobby thing where they go, oh, this is really exciting. It's so novel and exciting. And it's a real challenge, like trying to learn how to do this. And I'm quite passionate about it now. I've learned lots about it. And then you get to the start and you know everything about it. So the passion's gone. And then the challenge isn't there because you're quite good at it now. And then the interest is not there. And then you leave it by the wayside. So with Formula One, it is constantly moving forwards, and the urgency is there because everyone else down the paddock is doing the same. So if you don't keep up, then you're left behind.
Agreed.
Those are some great insights, and thank you for both sharing your point of views.
Josh, quick question. I'm curious. So I used to work in motorsport, and I left it because I struggled to find an environment where I could enable myself. And every time I would disclose my autism with colleagues, they felt I was using it as an excuse, even though, ironically, I was in an environment where everyone I was interacting with, you could argue, were also on the spectrum as well. There seems to be a lot in the media trying to divide people at the moment. What's your experience been of it since being diagnosed with ADHD, and how do we get people together in motorsport to enable this? Because I personally would love to come back one day, but trying to have those conversations when people still see it as me saying it as an excuse and not this is why you think this way, I struggle to make inroads. But I know you've been much more involved than me recently. What's been your kind of take on it?
Yeah, I mean, when I did go for diagnosis and got diagnosed, I obviously told my parents first, and they were very happy for me. But my mum said something quite striking, which is I've kept with me. It's very helpful. That's great that you're diagnosed and you know how you can perform better and manage yourself better. Don't use it as an excuse, and don't use it as a personality. It's not your personality.
You're still Josh.
I'm still Josh. Your personality is separate and removed to the mechanics and the function of your brain. It sounds a bit weird, because how can it be? But it is. It just is. Like your personality is built on your reaction to something, how you react to something. Monty and Cheryl will react to things differently than I will, not based on neurodivergency or anything. It's just based on our previous lived experiences. So you're right. It's people will say, you're just using it as an excuse. Like, no, I'm not using it as an excuse, but just letting you know that I might need a little bit more time to approach this subject, or I might not approach it in the same way you do because you have a different personality than I do. Other people launch themselves in. One of the common misconceptions about ADHD is that you charge on headlong into projects and just screw everything up. I couldn't be the opposite. I want to know a plan, a laid out plan, and step by step. Present me with, get me a big project. I am overwhelmed because the ADHD brain struggles with task prioritization and breaking things down. So you see a big project and you go, oh my God, I'm looking at all of it all at once. It's like having, going through the matrix or something. You suddenly you are overwhelmed. Give me a layout plan. Step 1, walk into the room. Step 2, put pan on stove. Step 3, fill it with water. I can do that. It sounds really dumb, but sometimes you just got to change things for people. It's not that they can do it. They're not going to be able to do it as good, but you're making the job harder when you don't have to be. Again, not using it as an excuse.
It's communication. We both have a different way of communicating, but we both still get to the end goal. We just need our own method to get there. And if it takes the same amount of time and it's not causing anyone any harm, who cares? It just works for us.
Very quickly.
Of course, yeah.
I saw a graph recently of a study that was done on ADHD people and learning. And it was unbelievable. Like I saw it and immediately went, that makes so much sense. So there was a study, population where they weren't ADHD, those regular old normal people, and how they learn, and it was a linear progression over time. They got better, they did a bit more, they got better, did more, got better. And then with the ADHD population, it basically stayed flat. They weren't learning for the first period of their journey learning a topic, and then suddenly it started going up and up and was nearly vertical by the end, because the fact that you look at every single possible opportunity in a topic means that you not only are overwhelmed at first, but once you then start getting your head around it, you've seen every single possible path to doing this thing. So eventually your learning accelerates like crazy, and the ADHD people by the end of the study had overtaken the people with who weren't ADHD in learning whatever they were learning. Which I found very striking, and I was like, yes, because I can do something, find it very complicated at first, go away, have a day like just thinking about it, and come back, and suddenly I just get it, and I just clicks and everything works, and I can do it better than the person who taught me. So, yeah.
That is interesting. Were they focusing on specific age groups in that study, or all age groups?
No, I think it was done. I think it was done on a younger age group.
Okay.
Because obviously they went to schools, I think, schools, universities, but it wasn't necessarily about learning how they learn what they are studying. It was learning a task they were given that was very complicated. So, yeah.
Amazing. No, thank you for sharing that. Let's move on to you, Cheryl.
I just want to start with, all of that makes so much sense to me. And I'm just like, okay. Okay. Makes sense. But I think Monty already knew that.
Yes, I did. As I say, I know my own people. But
when I was doing the last few years before I got diagnosed, I was hanging around a lot of people in Formula One, working as an expert host in the paddock, and whenever like the proverbial S hit the fan, all the people with ADHD who were diagnosed ADHD, like 2 or 3 of them, would be sort of standing around going, yeah, I know what to do. And I was also with them, standing going, yeah, what's the problem? Like, and everyone else was flapping, and then I'd make jokes about being ADHD. And I'm also ADHD, I forgot my jacket and stuff like that. And then eventually they were going, yes, you're really ADHD. And I was like, oh yeah, I should really got diagnosed.
Literally me and you, not gonna lie.
yes, defo. Very relatable, this. But we're not just doing a neurodiversity this year, though, Jen.
Exactly,
Cheryl's come
yes.
from a very different angle from this, and it really ties in a lot.
Exactly, yes. Your chosen charity is Cancer Research UK. And from what I've seen online is that you've been hosting your own annual events, actually, and one of which was a 24-hour live stream on Twitch where during a 24-hour period, you were able to raise around £3,000, which is pretty amazing. And I just want to know a little bit from you. Could you share what initially inspired you to raise money for this particular cause and why you continue to do so?
Well, in 2020, we lost my uncle to cancer complications. He was in the US, and this was in 2020. So there was like no way to go see him, all that stuff and everything. And he was an incredible human being. He was literally like the pinnacle of kindness. He would help anyone and everyone he could, despite not always having everything himself. He would always just be there for people. And it's just tragic what happened to him, really. That kind of like kickstarted, because after he passed, obviously I was going through the grieving stages, and I was just like, I need to do something. I need to carry on this legacy for him. So that was when I just started streaming in 2020 as well. So for the whole month of September, because he passed away at the end of August, I was like, I'm going to raise some money. And in that first, like, sort of charity kind of thing, I did it for the whole month. We raised over £1,000, which was incredible. And the next year, I was just like, you know what? I could torture myself for 24 hours. I can't remember how much we raised on that one particularly. And then the one after that, I did another 24-hour stream. Made a mistake on all of them. Too much caffeine the first one. Ate crickets at about midnight because we raised enough money. I torture myself for charity. So I ate crickets because
Crickets?
you can buy them on Amazon. They're a superfood, actually.
You know what? I have had them in Mexico and with like a bit of lime and chili and salt. They are really nice. I'm not gonna
I
lie.
don't like them.
The shrimps with legs, aren't they?
Yeah, basically. I mean, I'm a pescatarian, but even I ventured to try and cricket. I'm not gonna lie, they are pretty good.
See, I didn't like them. But I think I just had like a packet of like, they were like roasted. And it was the texture. They tasted like almonds, in my opinion. But it was the texture. I'm really weird with textures. If something can taste absolutely amazing, if the texture's off, no, I'm good.
You've got to get those fresh crickets out of the garden.
Oh, yeah, definitely. 100%. I'll try that next time. Don't get any ideas. Then cracked an egg on my head for the next one. And my brother was with me for that one. That's when my nanny, who literally for my entire life, I always saw her at least once a week. And because she lived around the corner from me, so at least once a week I always saw her. I was really, really close with her. A few times, like my mum was literally just like, well, what are you going to do kind of thing. I'm like, I'm just going to go to nanny's kind of thing. Like we were so close. And she got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which took her after her diagnosis, just a few months after. And then I was just like, you know what, I'm going to yeet myself out of a plane. And then did a skydiving event. And at that event we raised over £10,000.
Wow.
And then the following year I did a karting event, which Monty attended. It was nowhere near as good as yours.
It was still great fun.
But it was still really, really great. And then I went to yours and I was like, oh, this is great. Then when you approached me about like collaborating a bit, I was like, yes. So yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll bring the cancer research into this. And recently we did lose also a fellow content creator. She was one of the first people I met through content creation. She was battling cancer for over 10 years. Beat it a few times, it came back. But yeah, she passed away a couple of weeks ago. And at the event I spoke to Monty, we're going to have a minute's silence for her to honour her, because she was always a huge advocate. She always raised money for cancer and stuff, always spread awareness. She was one of the kindest people I've ever met. And she was incredible. Well, I've never met her in real life because she was also in the US, but online.
Oh, that is so sad, but thank you for sharing that. Through my own sort of lived experience with this, I completely understand, not myself having cancer, but someone very close to me going through that battle. So I'm kind of seeing that from that lens as like a loved one / like co-carer, if you will. So I don't know how you feel about this, but from sort of my personal experience with this subject, I feel like there's been like this like duality of like good news and bad news when like people are navigating this sort of diagnosis together as like a family, if you will. Like the bad news, which is obviously receiving the diagnosis, but then the I guess somewhat good news of treatment options being available. Do you agree with that? And also like how important is it to have the right kind of support system during this difficult time?
Yeah, you definitely need a really good support system. Even with like the good news of treatment options, like things like chemo and stuff, that really drains the body. You're essentially putting poison into your body to kill the cancer, which is needed, don't get me wrong, but you also seeing them like deteriorate a little bit, them not living their lives to the fullest and stuff like that. But that's why I want to support cancer research, because they are making breakthroughs all the time. We were at an event last year. Was it last year?
Last year.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah.
Sorry, time is...
Blurs, it's fine.
yeah, literally.
Christmases merge.
Yeah, just last year, where it was Dr. Khalil, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, who talked about all of their breakthroughs. They've made a lollipop that can detect oral cancer. There's this huge thing that I'm seeing on my feed all the time now, where they can now detect brain cancer in minutes, not months. They're developing a smart bra. So
for breast cancer.
Yeah, for breast cancer.
Yes.
I think there's a vaccine in testing for lung cancer. They've also developed a medication that isn't chemo, but will help people with, I believe it's terminal leukemia. So they get the extension of their life with the quality of life as well, which is absolutely incredible. And there was a scientist that I did read online has cured pancreatic cancer in mice. And while we're still really far away from beating that particular one, that's still a huge breakthrough. And they've made so many breakthroughs in the last 50 years that I want to support this. And even if you can only like donate, this goes for all charities really, even if you can only donate £1, most donations for charities are under £10. But if 10 people donate £1, that's £10. And fun fact, £4 buys a test tube. And you never know if that test tube is going to contain the thing that cures cancer.
Oh wow. Yeah, there I didn't realize all those like different like studies, like with the lollipop especially and the bra. Like that's really amazing to hear, like how the research is sort of like developing as like time goes on. And I'm looking forward to seeing like what the future holds and like what these amazing people could come up next. And yeah, just on that, I want to appreciate all three of you for opening up so far and like what each of your chosen charities mean to you so far. And I think just on like the keyword experiences, every person has like their own personal story, like no matter what it is everyone's going through. But I think it's also very important to acknowledge, I guess, like other types of barriers, if you will, such as like gender, race, socioeconomic backgrounds. I kind of like to think that some people don't live in like so-called boxes. We all kind of live at intersections to a certain extent. And I think, for example, someone that may be battling cancer, unfortunately, maybe due to like their financial background, may not be able to, receive the treatment that they need, for example. And according to, I pulled up a fact from Cancer Research UK, actually, from one of their recent reports. It was a 2025 study of socioeconomic deprivation, shows that cancer deaths rate are nearly 60% higher for people living in the most deprived areas of the UK compared with least deprived areas, with around 28,400 cancer deaths each year linked to socioeconomic inequalities, which equates to around 78 deaths each day. And when we were talking about neurodiversity earlier, I pulled up from a fact there as well, mentioning how historically it's been sort of like very male bias in terms of like diagnosis criteria, how women and girls are still significantly underdiagnosed and misdiagnosed with ADHD and autism. And something I pulled out from another source as well, called Autistic Girls Network. It discusses the hidden struggles of neurodivergent women. And it states that historically, the main focus of ADHD research was on teenage boys. And there were 0 studies on ADHD focused on women and girls, not until 2017, according to this. And I just want to know from all of you, like, how you feel about these stats and how someone perhaps may feel misinterpreted through more than one identity at the same time.
So I've got something on that point about the ADHD research being focused mainly on boys, and so I said earlier I had inattentive ADHD. It's only recently we've discovered that, like they've discovered that there's more than one type. You can have more than one type. It was always just thought to be one thing, because ADHD, because again, hyperactive is very easy to spot. It's the person who can't sit down. Inattentive is very hard to spot because the person who might just be in their own world in the back of the class. Inattentive ADHD is significantly more common in women than it is in men, whereas it's the other way around for men for ADHD, for hyperactive. So it was almost like, it's terrible because a young girl with ADHD who can't focus would get written off because there's no such thing as ADHD in that respect. No, you're not hyperactive. You're not bouncing off the walls. You can't have ADHD. So yeah, it's interesting that I've got inattentive ADHD overwhelmingly, actually, and yeah, it's just an interesting sort of point about the evolution of our understanding of ADHD is this idea that like inattentive is much more common in women than men. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got 2 things. Remind me for the second one, it's intersectionality. I will forget it, so please trigger me at some point on it. But the first point I wanted to make up, following up from what Josh is saying there, neurodiversity is still really misunderstood. It's been more than 25 years since my diagnosis. There's been a lot of evolution in our understanding in that time. As I said in the previous podcast, that based on what they knew in the 90s, someone with Asperger's syndrome or who was autistic shouldn't have been able to have spoken. They shouldn't have been able to get past education. That every day is a learning day, and we're still learning today. And you're quite right. A lot of it's been based on male bias. So a lot of women who have masked their symptoms for years are only getting their diagnosis now. If you look at neurodiversity more broadly, it's a big umbrella. They call it the neurodiversity umbrella, but most of the conditions which get the attention are autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and Tourette syndrome. I'll provide you with a poster to include in this for afterwards for people to go and have a look at, because when you look at the full umbrella, it's vast. You're talking about other conditions which we take for granted or we've never associated with it before, like OCD. Down syndrome is in there as well. There's also acquired neurodiversity. If you've had a brain injury, maybe you're hypermobile, you've got Parkinson's, a form of dementia, your brain is changing because you've had an injury. So the way that the world made sense for you before is going to be very different to you now. I can attest to that because growing up as an autistic kid, I had concussion when I was 18, and suddenly things just didn't work for me anymore, and I had to retrain my brain. So it was like being autistic, like double autistic for a while, because suddenly what was working for me for the last 10 years didn't work, so I had to retrain. Neurodiversity is so complex, and we're still learning about it. It's a work in progress, and I would give it another 20 years. Maybe our tags aren't going to be relevant anymore because they've tied it into something completely different. We just don't know. Every day is a learning day on that front, but being comfortable to have those conversations in the meantime, I think, is the main thing, because it creates relatability for others going, oh, actually, you've just described my situation as well, and that's how we bridge together.
I think the main point is that exactly we have these conversations about labels and whatever, and not be scared about labeling things or see it as a problem, because then eventually down the line you get rid of the labels completely and you just realise that everyone's got a bit of everything. I mean, there's not a single person in the entire world that doesn't have some sort of neurodivergence. We've all got some hobby we're fascinated by or know everything about a certain subject, or are particularly good at one thing over everything else for no discernible reason. And on my brother's got Down syndrome, older brother. When he was born, they said, even this is in 1989, when he was born, they said, do you want us to take him away? Because are you going to, to my parents, he's not going to live very long. And he's now 36. He's just had a double hip replacement last year. And he is the most loving, caring person I know. He is the part of Down syndrome is that they just don't have this inhibition for love. It's lovely. I mean, you should get him on here. So it's just he doesn't need a label. He doesn't need, everyone he sees is just another person that he's going to love. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear about your brother. Thank you for sharing that bit. And Cheryl, do you have anything to add about any of the stats or?
From an experience I had before, I'm not going to name names or say anything like that, but I went up to someone who was a bit older than me and someone who I know quite well, and I was just like, I'm starting to think I might have ADHD, and they brushed it off instantly. They were like, no, you can't have ADHD. No, you don't, kind of thing. Nah, everything's fine.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was just like, okay, never mind, not talking about that again.
That's disappointing to hear that people still have that stance.
It's sorry to hear about that.
It's like it's how it was dealt with in the past was that
they were quite a lot older, so it was kind of like, as much as it sucked, I kind of understood that they were kind of stuck in their old ways. So don't hate them for it, but also
there's a generational thing.
Yes, a generational thing.
I mean, that's a whole neurodivergence in its own. It's like,
literally.
Don't get me started.
Don't tell them that. But it's so flippant, and also, aren't you just kind of? It's just baffling to me. Like, aren't you just interested to know what that could mean? Aren't you just curious to find out more about this thing, rather than going, oh no, just carrying on with your life. And you know, you got to kind of self-assess a lot. And that's kind of how I've got to myself to this point, because I started self-assessing.
Yes.
And I found out, oh, I've got ADHD. And great, I can move on in a different way. And but
there's a lot for you.
But it worked for me. But like,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of barriers like that, which is just, you know, I mean, we were speaking about earlier downstairs as well. Like you're a streamer and a gamer in racing games, and you're a female. Oh my God, how dare they? And it's, you know, I've got 2 younger sisters as well. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's just let people do what they want to do.
Well, even in like high school, no one really wanted to play video games with me. I was a massive gamer. I just played Forza on my own.
I would have played video games with you.
I loved video games as a kid. Yeah.
Who doesn't love video games?
I mean, if you don't like it, I've got
Nintendo
serious suspicions
64,
if you don't.
Nintendo Cube. I really was a fan of like video games back in the day from that era, like all the Nintendo
Yeah.
equipment. My goodness.
Happy Pokemon Day, by the way, as well.
Oh yeah, happy Pokemon Day.
Yes, happy 30th birthday to
Yeah, I
Pokemon.
just
Oh
like
yes,
Bring
happy
Bring
birthday.
All the neurodivergents go, oh, yeah.
Everything's happening all at once.
Exactly. Josh has just reminded me,
Yes.
intersectionality. That
Yes,
was the other
I
thing
do.
Yes, that was the other
that
thing
was the second thing.
Yes.
Yes. Would you like to share?
Yes.
I could tell you're
Sorry, I just had that eureka moment because you just triggered me on that.
You know what?
thought
I was
again.
going to remind you, and I forgot.
Yeah. I was.
ADHD.
To be fair, I also forgot. I had it in my.
Oh no,
It's fine, it's
I
all
was
good.
just about to remind you, but I could tell how ready you are. So
No,
go for
it was
it.
when you started talking about women in gaming. I went, that was the other point. Yeah, intersectionality. I think this is the other important thing to talk about. Tying it back to racing awareness for a second, because I know some of the people I reached out to about this year, they went, why are you doing cancer? I thought this was neuro-inclusion. And intersectionality is the bigger topic here, because it's about bringing communities together, because intersectionality is about recognizing that you can be misrepresented in more than one way. I think it's particularly important from a cancer point of view, because with the advancement in diagnosis, the advancement in treatment, people are living longer. Even if, of course, more and more people are getting a cure from it, but even those who are living with cancer or managing it, it's not over in 6 months now. They could be living for 10 years with it. So are they just going to wait for the inevitable, or do they get on with their life? I think this is really important when we talk about intersectionality, because living with cancer is common. 1 in 2 of us will get cancer during our life. That's a lot of people impacted by it. And so this is why it was so important, for me anyway, why I saw alignment here, because at the end of the day, we're talking about living your lives. You're being misrepresented in so many different ways. The sunflower lanyards for invisible disabilities. If you've had cancer, if you've had chemo, you've got no immune system, that you're trying to go back to work and carry on with life, someone coughs over you and that's it, you're wiped out for months. So I think it's as important when we talk about intersectionality that, it has started from a neurodivergence point of view, but actually we're talking about community here. We're talking about people. And this is for me why it was relevant for us to band together, because we're coming from this from so many different angles. And this is just the beginning. I would love for us to have rounds every month to represent other factors, to be able to support women. You know, we see with Mission 44, with underrepresented communities, women in motorsport as well. There's so many people out there that have an element of feeling misrepresented. There's been a very high profile example of it with the BAFTAs this week, of 2 misrepresented communities coming together, and the media have yet again used this as an opportunity to divide people. That's the wrong way, guys. I'm not going to go off on one about that, but this is the main point. Bring people together, accept that we all have a different way of seeing what is normal, and come along for the journey, bridge the gap.
And those people with autism and ADHD undiagnosed in Formula One make medical equipment too. They made breathing apparatus for people with COVID and long COVID during COVID. They turned all of their knowledge and expertise towards things like fighting cancer. And so people who, like you said, things aren't a box, you're at intersections. And that is a big intersection is Formula One and motorsport, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Formula One and motorsports. So I'm going to be turning my attention to you for a little bit.
Cheryl races online too. So.
Yes, exactly.
Formula One is a very big focus of mine. I've been itching for the new season for so long.
It's funny because before I went to James's event last year, I didn't know too much about the whole Formula One world, but I think I'll be honest, since I went to your event, I kind of have this like, I've been watching just like various shows, and I just recently got back from like a long haul flight, and I was watching this like, I don't know how old this show
Drive to
or
Survive.
documentary is. It's called The Rookie, I think. And it followed these like really like new racers trying to get into like the world of Formula One racing, and I binged that through my flight, and I was like, I'm kind of hooked now, thanks to you, to be honest.
You're welcome.
But yeah, Josh, yeah, obviously, like I mentioned there, you have a very like special relationship with the sport in general, based on your family background. But as you being a Formula One super host, you get to interview like racers. Talking to them, and I guess like giving fans like a glimpse of what they're like, away from the tracks. How do you feel like the representation of racers in sports media has evolved over the years, like in terms of like their image, media training, and do you feel like they get to show off their personalities? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I like Superhost much more than Expert Host. I'm going to use that one, F1 Superhost. It's such a different world now. I mean, so in the past, someone called Bernie Eccleston owned Formula One, and he was very protective of the TV rights and everything, as you would be. But he didn't adapt with the advent of stuff like social media. So when social media rocked up, he still had this kind of embargo on them posting things online and blah, 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 and making Formula One a global phenomenon, which it is today. Eventually, he sold those rights, when was it, 2016 or
16,
something?
yeah, 10 years.
2016. And then suddenly, you've got stuff like Drive to Survive on Netflix. You've got people, every single team and driver posting loads of stuff and posting stuff of inside the garage and all this insightful content, which people absolutely were gagging for. Like they were begging, like they would latch onto any. I mean, you know, Monty, like they just growing up and watching Formula One in the 90s and the early noughties up till 2010, 2015, you were stuck with whatever was shown on telly, really. And then you could watch like occasional highlights on YouTube, but it was what was shown on telly that was just chucked onto YouTube. So it wasn't anything new. Whereas now, oh my God, I mean, as well, back in the 90s, when my dad was driving, you couldn't really be your personality to an extent, especially once you got into the noughties. It was like just lockdown. Like you had to just be the team's driver. That was it. There was very little kind of background law or anything about the driver and the teams, and you didn't, the average person on the street wouldn't be able to name someone out of the top four of an F1 grid, or anyone else in the paddock for that matter as well. Whereas now, oh my God, like every single, it seems like everyone knows everything about Formula One now, which makes my job really hard because yeah, I mean, this is where my role steps in. Whereas I've not been in Formula One, but I've grown up with Formula One. I've grown up around Formula One, and I've also raced, so I know what it's like to put a helmet on and be in a car. So I don't ask those stupid questions you often hear from journalists that are completely picked out of the air. And also sometimes the drivers, they do these interviews all day, all weekend long, constantly. Oh, what's it like? What's it, asking them constantly about what's that, car like to drive, or what's, and I like to throw in those questions like that they don't expect. And there's one with Mick Schumacher I did, and he'd recently been to see Monster Tanaka, who's like a drifter. I think it was Monster, and he's like in Japan, and it was in Japan, and he has these amazing like modified drift cars and stuff, and you could see his face light up because suddenly he talked about something he wanted to talk about rather than their job, so so that's where it's just such a different world now. I mean, I'm not really counting my granddad's era because it was Wild West. It was the first 10-15 years of them doing anything like that, so they were just going with it, and it was the 60s. It was cool, it was rock and roll. And then by the time it got to my dad's era, it was very high tech, a bit space age stuff. But you had absolute legends like Ayrton Senna in there. You had that, and Alan Prost. And then by the time you got to the sort of noughties and stuff, it was very tightly controlled media-wise. So this kind of explosion in popularity is great. It's fantastic. I mean, F1 has never been healthier. It's great to see. And so it's such a different world now. Yeah.
A question for the group, and also Cheryl, I'd like to get your thoughts on this in particular as a woman with a very keen interest in sort of this motorsports world. Do you feel like there's any distinct differences in the way the media portrays men versus women racers?
With F1 Academy coming in, I think that really, really helped with everything. Like they had, what was the women's one called? It was like FW or something like that.
W series, yeah.
Yeah, I keep getting confused because I'm in the W1 series for League Online, which is also getting people being like, oh, women kind of thing. When we did an interview at Aston Martin with a racer, I can't remember her name because I'm the worst with everything.
Was it the Formula One Academy driver?
It wasn't a F1 Academy driver.
I can't remember either, but it will come back to me. Continue the story and I will remember.
And basically, the things are getting better for women in motorsport. But the thing we need is just more women in it, basically, because it's so male dominated that naturally people are going to pay more attention to the men kind of thing. But as the numbers are going up, it is improving.
I mean, I was in the era when I was racing single seater properly and everything, where this whole conversation was starting and going, how do we get more women into motorsport? Why aren't there women in motorsport? Why isn't there not a woman in Formula One? And the simple fact was, where are they? There are not enough of them. There's not enough people starting at the bottom. You can't just jump in halfway through and carry on. That's not how motorsport works. You have to work up your way up the ladder. It's just been the same for everyone, and it's not about fairness. It's just about learning. And so the pool of talent that women had to pick from was was 1-2% of the population of motorsport. It was minuscule. I mean, it's not much bigger now. It's growing, like it's rapidly growing. It's fantastic to see, but it was tiny. And the kind of argument arose of like, we need to do more to get women into motorsport. It's like, that's great, but we need to get more women interested in motorsport in the first place to then get them in a car to want to do it themselves. There's a big difference between the two. And, the girls I knew who are racing drivers, they grew up around motorsport too. They weren't kind of brought to it or by something else. But with something like Drive to Survive, I mean, that stuff like that and social media and all that, that's what it needed to get the fire started. And now it's really burning along nicely. So
there's a third point to this
you were
as well.
swearing at me for a second.
Sorry, no, free. Yeah, you're right. We need more grassroots. We need, because it starts from the bottom, and it takes, unfortunately, a generation to start seeing that momentum to come through. But for those that are beginning to reach there, because I see it in educational contests like Formula Students and that, those who want to go into STEM, there's a third element to this now. How do you keep them in the industry? And I've seen this with my own eyes. Until you can't have diversity without inclusion, because you can bring as many women as you want into motorsport, but if there isn't a reason for them to stay there, they're going to leave just as quickly again. And I know of one team, I'm not name dropping here, but I'm aware of one team who had put together a scheme. This was for internships, this was for graduates, and they were prioritising, I think it was 25 women to fill up these slots. And I caught up with the L&D and HR team of this team about 18 months later to see how it was going on, and only 3 of them were left in it. I said, oh, what's happened? And they said, well, we're not quite sure, but we feel they just won't cut out for it. And that for me is a key thing right there. If you feel that they're not cut out for it, then you're treating getting women into motorsport as a tick box exercise, because if they're not cut out for it, that's not necessarily because they didn't like it. I'm aware going back to intersectionality here, I'm aware that as a white male, I statistically am contributing to the problem. But as an autistic individual, was not enabled in that industry either because I didn't fit in either. So there's a bigger overarching problem here. If you focus just on getting more women in, that's not going to guarantee that they're going to stay around for a while. Case study I'm aware of, there was this, it's not motorsport, but it's relevant. There was this example of someone who was the director of HR for a big corporation, and she was against bringing in further maternity leave practices and that because that wasn't there back in her day. So if you end up with, I'm not saying this is everyone, but if you end up with a woman in an industry who's made it to the top because they've just done it the same way that the boys did it to make it there, that's alpha behavior. That's not actually inclusive at all there. So it's a much bigger discussion, and it does take time to make that happen to ensure that you're getting more women and more underrepresented communities into motorsport, but they want to stay there afterwards as well because it feels like a place where they belong.
On the flip side of that, to look at it a different way, like I'm in a very unique position, having my dad, my granddad. It wasn't like the tick box exercise that you're talking about. You know that we're trying to.
That's a bit crass wording.
No,
for
no,
me,
no.
but
It spurred this thought, which is that I was expected to go into motorsport, and you said about being cut out for it. I was expected to go into motorsport because of who my dad was and because of who my granddad was. I've been told it since I was 4 years old, since I could understand what people said. Oh, you're going to be a racing driver just like your dad. Oh, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I didn't start racing, until I was 15. So that's already not cut out for it.
Is that for context for listeners? Is that like considered like a
You're an
late
old man.
age to start? Oh, really? Okay.
If you want to get Formula One,
Right.
starting at 15 is probably not the time to be.
What's the average age that people usually start?
I mean, most of the grids started before they were 10.
Really,
sure,
that young?
you
Wow.
can start as young as 4 now with classes like
4?
Bambino. It is possible to start as young as
Bambinos.
4. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But my dad was a late starter. He started on bikes, but then he moved to cars about 24 years old. My granddad was a late starter, but it was a very different world back then. Nowadays, I mean, you're getting kids into Formula One at 18 years old, and so the idea. I get lots of messages a day going, "Can you help me? Can you coach me? I want to get to Formula One." I go, "Where are you at right now?" And they go, "I'm 16." I go, "I'm sorry, but you look somewhere else. You can go otherwise. Other places in motorsport, Formula One's not going to be it." Anyway, to go back to my point, which is, I was expected to go into motorsport. I was being told to go. I was going to be a racing driver, just like my dad. But I found out by doing that I wasn't cut out for it. So on the flip side of that, saying that you're taking women on into motorsport, and then they weren't cut out for it. It's a bit kind of harsh on them, isn't it? I mean, you're not giving them a chance. They might be.
Absolutely.
You never know. You got to just. I've always maintained that, we're only seeing the top 20 drivers on the grid, in the top fastest drivers in the world that we know about.
Yes.
I have one final question for the group, just to round off the segment, and we're almost at the end of the show, guys. Do you feel like the future of diversity and inclusion is bright in motorsports? Question for the group.
Yes.
I think it's definitely headed in the right direction.
James?
It is definitely heading in the right direction. But this is the dangerous time where people start to get complacent. This is the most important time, I would say, to keep that momentum going, because otherwise it will be lost just as within a year. And it took so long to get to this point.
We've been talking a lot about diversity and inclusion from the inside and the kind of change that's happening on the inside, but that's only driven by what's happening on the outside.
Yep.
If the people watching and following motorsport want diversity and inclusion in their sport and aren't seeing it, they'll stop watching.
Yeah.
And then that means that the governing body or whatever, the people who control Formula One, will carry on as they are. But if they can see everyone's leaving in droves because they're not supporting diversity and equality, then then they're going to change. So that's the main point.
The key point to that, though, being that it's people driven, not data driven. because that's how it risks becoming a tick box exercise, and that's how you then risk it becoming positive discrimination, because you're employing someone because they're a girl, because they're black, because of etc., etc. And that's just as wrong as negative. It should be merit driven, really, there to ensure that those who want a career in F1, who want to be part of STEM, have the opportunities available to get there.
Yeah, amazing. It really is just about like people at the end of the day. But honestly, guys, thank you so much for your time today. I learned about a lot about all like the different stats that everybody brought in. So thank you for sharing those personal stories. I just have one final question just to end the show. And that is, what word comes to mind when you think of kindness? Who would like to go first?
Ollie, my brother.
Okay, very nice.
Well, I spoke about him earlier. I'd say my teacher, Jimmy.
What word? Single word?
Could be a word
I technically used two.
yeah, you could use two words.
One of them wasn't even English.
Maybe three if you want. I didn't put a specific word count, so anything just pops to mind.
Kindness has no boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And word count.
I agree with that. For me, kindness is about putting my own preferences aside and recognizing what is important to that other person. I've always maintained that, and I've always followed through with that.
All the negativity in the world. You want to bring some positivity.
That's how a battery works, guys.
I didn't. Great. All right.
Zing.
I'll just go get my pen here.
That's a very interesting
my coat.
analogy, but I guess a great way to wrap up the show. That is it for today, guys, on For Kindness Sake. And if you guys want to give these guys a follow on Instagram, you could follow Josh on Josh Hill Racing, James at JJMonty91, and Cheryl at Miyuki Panda _. And some of the dates for racing awareness, there'll be 3 rounds this year. Round 1, which will take place on the 4th of April at Daytona Motorsports Sandown. Round 2 will take place on the 15th of August at Silverstone. And round 3, October 17 at Rye House. More information will be on the show notes of this episode. And if you enjoyed it, guys, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, rate and review, all that amazing stuff. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watch us on YouTube. You can also give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok at For Kindness Sake Pod. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Genevieve, and for the sake of it, be kind. Bye. Bye-bye.